I'm Sarah Mary Brown. I'm originally from Glasgow. I have a shoeing business in Yorkshire now, and I'm a fellow of the Worshipful Company of Farriers.
You know, the very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the Mullins Farrier Podcast.
Every horse, whatever it was doing, had a season. Once their competition season finished, they took the shoes off, they chucked it out in the field with some other horses, and it had a 2, maybe 3 months period where it went and remembered what being a horse was all about.
Even in a cheaper area, your prices should be set by your skill level, by your experience. And some people might not feel that they're worth, as much as others. But if you're only charging $160 to shoe a horse, then the only way you're making money is on your trims.
The WCB was a way to make sure that you kept the trade alive. I think I'm a custodian of the trade, so it's like we have to keep it going.
It was hard, but you adapt and overcome, and that probably gets to me where I am now. It's problem solving, horseshoeing's problem solving, and back in the day it was problem solving how to be as strong as the older apprentice is. So it's all about adapting and overcoming, which was good.
I know we learn every day, but you do have to put yourself outside the box and just continue to learn, which is why I was just trying to do my fellowship, because I still have apprentices, and if I stay at my AW, I'm stagnant.
Welcome, everyone. A few shopkeeping items before we start. I'm recording this fresh off a trip to the Heartland for 1 week of the blacksmithing workshop, where I learned all kinds of tips and tricks off of Chris and Cody Gregory. It never ceases to amaze me how those two can take a student who has never held a pair of tongs in their life and have them forge welding and turning out plain stamp horseshoes by the end of a week or so. One of my biggest regrets is that I discovered the school far too late in my career to attend their regular 12 and 24-week courses. If you've been toying with the idea of becoming a farrier, a rare opportunity has come up. A few spots for the 12 and 24-week courses have opened up. This is a great opportunity to do what I wish I had done many years ago. Look them up at heartlandhorseshoeing.com. Also, this is your last opportunity to get tickets for Dr. Simon Curtis's webinar on laminitis with Professor Chris Pollitt. The webinar takes place this Wednesday, March 13th. Go to eventbrite.co.uk and search for it under the title of Laminitis 3 Webinar. And finally, I wanted to let you know about a special clinic being held May 17th to 18th in Mount Vernon, Virginia. Keep 'em ringing. Benefit clinic honoring the legacy and contributions of Scott Collier. There is quite the list of all-star clinicians involved in this one. Craig Trenka, Austin Edens, Hank Chisholm, Daniel Jones, Carl Villa, Justin Decker, Travis Burns, and Scott Fleming will all be giving demos and lectures. All proceeds from this great event will go to the Collier family. For more details, contact Steve at 703-851-4373. And now for today's guest. I finally got to meet the legendary Sarah Mary Brown at this year's International at Stoneleigh. Because he was so busy being the chief steward, Danny Bennett left me in the capable hands of Jamie Hughes to arrange guests and keep the interviews coming. I was listing off my wish list of potential guests to Jamie, and when I said Sarah Brown, he stopped me instantly and walked away. Seconds later, he came back with Sarah in tow, and she agreed to do the interview. As you will hear, Sarah has an infectiously positive attitude when it comes to all aspects of farriery. Whether it's learning, competing, or pursuing higher-level exams, her enthusiasm is quite apparent. Anyway, it was an honor to get to sit and chat with this very talented woman. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. So I've wanted to interview you for quite a while. Danny said you might be here last year. I think you showed up just briefly and then you were gone.
I showed up quite briefly and had an impromptu night out that finished at 6 a.m. So I never actually made it. So it's lovely to be here this year for the full weekend.
Well, it's lovely to have you.
Thank you.
And you're competing.
I am, yeah. I'm reserved for the Scottish team. So that's nice to be back around the guys, back around that level of competitors, seeing everybody catching up. It's just such a great event.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, how long have you been competing for?
Since I was an apprentice, so since 2001.
Okay.
So 22 years, yeah.
Right. And you apprenticed with Derek?
Yep, Derek Garden was my ATF, so I was really lucky. I had a fantastic boss, now a fantastic friend as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, really lucky. Yeah, great training farrier.
No kidding. And so he instilled the competitive drive?
Yeah, he's a good teacher. Opportunity to learn, always there to show you anything that you were struggling with. Just a great boss.
Yeah.
Really good guy, you know.
Well, a lot of folks from Canada who've done the exchange over here, they usually ended up going through his shop at some point, and he's always mentioned as a highlight that he's taught them a lot.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good training farrier and very sociable guy, just a great horseshoer, you know. So very, very lucky start I had, yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. So once you had moved on from him and started your own business, did you continue with making handmaids? Because he hand makes everything, doesn't he?
Yeah, so as an apprentice, we handmade nearly all the concave shoes.
Right.
And when I started out like that. But it's hard when you're on your own because you're trying to run a business and you're trying to hit hours and make a profit. So I ended up where I would just make shoes I needed to, extensions, bar shoes, and I would buy in the mass. And then when I started training, the apprentices here have to learn shoemaking anyway. So
right.
We still make sort of about 80% of the shoes probably now.
Oh, wow. Okay. How many apprentices do you usually have at a time?
I usually have one at a time. So I'm actually looking for a new one at the minute. My last one qualified. I had a really good lad work for me, Callum Sweeney, and he's finished now. So I need to find a new one. So I just have day workers at the minute come in, do a day, just on a day rate. So yeah, I'm on the hunt for a new one, yeah.
Right. Now, is it harder to find help kind of worldwide? There seems to be this move towards the easier jobs. Like people don't seem to like to get their hands dirty these days. And I wondered if it was that way in your neck of the woods or not.
It's really funny. I think it's really hard to recruit the right people. There's some really good lads out there, but you have to interview quite a lot to find them. And sometimes they have to be with you for a little while before you realise that they are really good. But I think the basics, if they'll work and they'll graft, and when it's grunty in the summer, if they can dig deep and get on and they'll listen and you get on with them, that's the deal. You're in the van all day, every day. You've got to get on, they've got to have a bit of banter and kind with the horses, good with the customers. There's a lot to it they've got to do, but it's interesting you say that because Jasper Eriksson from Sweden, he said to me a few years ago that in Sweden, women are overtaking the men going into shoeing because they're wanting to go to these easier, cleaner jobs. They don't want to get dirty. They don't want to be sweating. So yeah, I think there's a bit of a shift in mentality of how people want to make money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in North America, it's the same thing. Heartland Horseshoeing School, where I often go, they had to change. Originally, they just had a small room for the women, and then the guys had the whole bottom floor. And now they've had to make it half and half because the women are overtaking men in how many go to school.
And I think as well, it's a bit of a lifestyle more than a job, isn't it? So
it is.
I think sometimes what people think it's going to be like, it's quite different once they start. But there are some really good kids. It's just finding the right one that fits in with your business and what you want out of them,
Right. Now, being a woman farrier in this country, I haven't seen a lot, but I don't know if that's just because I just come to these competitions and that they're not as interested in competing. What is it like ratio-wise? Are you a rarity here?
Well, there's more than you'd think.
Okay.
So I think we've got 3,000 men and there's maybe about 150 of us. So
Really?
150 is more than you'd think.
Yeah.
But it's not a lot in
No.
comparison still. But I think what you find is a lot of girls compete when they are apprentices and then don't always carry it on.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some really good girls. There's 2 girls on the English apprentice team this year.
Oh,
And
okay.
they're really keen and really at it. And it would be lovely to see them come into the senior classes and really keep that up.
Right.
It's such a big jump though, an apprentice class, 2 shoes in an hour. And then all of a sudden you're shoeing a foot in an hour and making a shoe. So it's a massive jump physically. And I think sometimes that's a bit off-putting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a girl, Rosie in particular, who is winning everything at the minute. And it would be lovely to see her continue,
Right.
Because I always say it's not what you are, it's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
If you can stamp the same job out, then that's the point, isn't it,
Yeah. Well, I just interviewed Jim Hayter, and he said that the apprentice classes, when he was competing, he did really well. And then all of a sudden, when he qualified and carried on, he just wasn't winning classes. And that jump was,
It's huge.
yeah, and it almost put him off of competing.
It's the physical as well, it's a big jump up. It's a lot more to do in that time, and the bigger, harder shoes, a lot more forging.
Yep.
But I like it. I think it keeps you every day, keeps my standards a bit better, keeps me trying to keep on top of stuff all the time. And I enjoy it as well, You come to these things and you chat about horseshoeing to folk and what you're doing at home, and you talk about horses you're shoeing and problems you have. And it's not just the actual competing, it's such a great source of education on lots of different levels.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I think I've learned more in back hallways and the bar than I have at actual clinics and competitions.
Yeah, I always say that, sat in the pub afterwards, having a pint, having a chat to folk. I've picked up so many tips about different things, and yeah, it's good. It's really good. It's healthy.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody should write a textbook just based on pub conversations.
Pub chat.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've got the title. Trademark that.
Okay. I got on that.
So how did you make that balance between competing and running a business? Because as you said, it's really hard once you qualify and have to pay the bills yourself. How do you keep that balance of practicing, competing, and shoeing enough horses to keep food on the table?
It's hard. It's a juggling act. I don't think you ever get it right all the time.
Okay.
You go through stages where you think, oh yeah, this is all right. I'm getting everything done. And you go through other times where you're really busy shoeing and you want to practice more and you can't because you've got horses to shoe and that pays your bills. I'm really lucky. My business actually goes quite quiet in the winter from actually about now to the start of February.
Oh, okay.
So I get a lot of time to practice through the winter, but maybe not so much in the summer. So I try and make the most of the winter months and get on top of forging a little bit. When I'm struggling in the summer for time, it's not such a big deal. But it's hard. You race around, you go to competition for 4 days, you race back, you shoe your horses. And I think having good clients, understanding clients, that's the deal. Good relationship with them. If you can, you do. And when you can't, they understand that. And that's important,
Yeah, for sure. I think you'll lose certain clients, especially in the beginning, because they don't appreciate the fact that you're doing what you're doing.
Bettering yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Back home, if you're a farrier who travels to Florida to shoe horses down there, that means you're really good. But if you're a farrier who's away because you're competing, there's no clout to that to the clients, which has always blown my mind because you're clearly going to do better and better yourself, but they do not appreciate that.
Some of my clients don't even know I compete. They don't even know there's such a thing as horseshoeing competitions.
Really?
But yeah, I think it's just balancing it. And it is hard. And I don't really know how you do it. I think you fumble along as you go. It's really hard with work because I think horseshoeing's a strange job. You set up and you take on horses and you don't know you've got too many until you've got too many.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the first time you realise you've got too many is when you try to have a week off.
Yes.
And you go, what am I going to do all of these?
How am I going to, yeah.
And it's a funny business because you take on, and then all of a sudden you realise, and then you have to remanage the business a little bit. And I think that's just ongoing structure, and yards move, people move.
Yeah.
The style of horses you do. I do a lot of stud work now, which I never did before, but that's opened up educating myself a bit more about young stock and foals, and
Right.
just an ever morphing job. It's great. That's what keeps it interesting.
Yeah, you can't get bored.
You can't get bored.
No.
And if you are, you need to do something else.
Yeah, for sure. I actually found the same issue where I kept taking on more and more and saying yes too often. So this summer, I was like, okay, I'm just going to say no and stick with what I had.
It's so hard.
Yeah. And then I got really good at it. And then towards the end of the summer, I was like, I have a week. I don't know why I have a week. Where did this come from? And I filled it back in. And now I'm traveling to these things and clinics. And then I realized, yeah, I should have kept that week. But
And that's what's hard. You come in with a quiet week and you think, why am I quiet?
exactly.
What's happened here? And I think, oh yeah, go back in the diary 6 weeks. Yeah, I had a few days off then and
Yeah.
that kind of juggles it out. But it's a great business, isn't it?
It is. Yeah,
It's a happy place to work.
it is. I think if you don't do the things like you're talking about, like competing and constantly trying to better yourself, I think you can get into that grind mode though.
Still.
Yeah. And it becomes a drudgery.
Yeah. And we've just had CPD introduced as mandatory in the UK for all farriers. It used to be for ATFs.
Right.
For all farriers. And there's been a lot of grumblings, but I think that's really good because what you're saying is people are desperately trying to put things on at nights, at weekends,
So that they can fill those.
so they get the points. But actually what's really important is all of a sudden, groups of farriers that have been sat on their own for years are having to go out and socialise, having to go and see other horseshoers, having to pick bits up. Yeah, that's great. And that's probably the best bit out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
I think the whole social media world makes us more connected, but it allows you to just stay at home and share pictures instead of actually getting out and interacting with each other. And yeah, I think events like this and any of those clinics that you're talking about, it can't help but make people feel better too.
I think it motivates you. I always go home a little bit inspired and a little bit fresh, and it's just really good, you know. I found COVID really hard.
Yes.
And I'm not going to
everybody
lie,
did.
I was Zoomed to death. Like, I've gone from never being on a Zoom to like, and it was great during COVID, but there was a bit of a want to put more webinars on and more stay-at-home stuff, where actually I think it's really good to go somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, to be pushed to go out, get out your comfort zone, go and see people, go and listen to somebody different.
Yeah.
You know, I always say it doesn't matter if you don't think you'll use that type of shoe or that style of shoeing. You might come across a horse in 10 years and go, oh yeah, actually I remember that. And that's where it's useful, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's continued development.
Yeah, you just keep adding it to your toolbox, and
If you don't
like you
use
said,
it,
yeah,
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if you haven't got it in your toolbox, you can't use it.
exactly. Now, coming up as a woman in male-dominated industry, did you run across some trouble along the way? Like, were there people who didn't embrace you right off the bat? Did you have to work extra hard to prove yourself, or was it a pretty accommodating industry?
I think it's an amazing industry. I have had so many people help me.
Yeah.
I don't really know. If I wasn't aware of it. I think as a female, I always felt like I didn't want to be middle of the road. I wanted to be as good as I could be, not measure against other people, but as good as I could be. So I always had that motivation and that drive. So maybe there were people that I didn't really notice because I was too busy trying to be better at what I was doing, you know?
Right.
But I think definitely training for females in the UK is definitely a lot more open-minded. There's a lot more men taking women on.
Yeah.
And as I say, far from it being cool you're a woman, it shouldn't matter you're a woman. That's the point,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah.
The take-home point, really.
Yeah.
So, no, not really. I never really had any. And sexist comments, I always think people can choose to be offended.
Right.
You get to choose every time something's said to you, if it's offensive or it's not. People are very easily offended.
Yes.
So I just always take the opinion not to be offended. Take it as a joke, take it as whatever, take it as banter. But I don't want to get in that place where you're making it a sexist comment. It's only a sexist comment if you decide to take it like that. It's just banter normally, you know. And sometimes as well, I think for men, women coming into their domain, that must be slightly uncomfortable for them as well. So they try and banter it off and don't really know how to be around it. And the more women that are about, the easier it is and the more comfy everybody is as well.
Right. Yeah. I was having this discussion with a friend of mine where when he's uncomfortable, he goes to jokes.
Yep.
And
Natural.
crudeness, right? And he probably doesn't even think of it. But yeah, probably some nerves play into that, and that's exactly what happens.
And if you're a woman and you're going to go into a male-dominated industry, be prepared that you accept male behaviour because it's different from female behaviour. We are different.
Right.
Physically, mentally, we're different, you know? So just accept that, you know, and just don't expect them to change. You just have to fit in and just accept the way things are around you.
Well, and it's interesting when you say that just because you were trying to make yourself better, I think it seems to be, doesn't matter whether you're male or female, if you approach the right people who are doing good things, like most of the people here, if you approach them humbly and ask for help or to spend some time with them or whatever, there aren't many that would turn you down.
No, I've been really lucky. When I first qualified, I used to go every year and go to one farrier. So I picked different folk and I say, can I come and work for you for a week?
Right.
So I went to Dave Smith, I went to Spud, I went to Joe Bryan a couple of times, went to Nigel Fennell a couple of times, and they were all fantastic. Nobody ever says no.
Yeah.
And when you go on and you're ringing people that are specifically good at show jumpers or faux work, or nobody ever doesn't want to share their knowledge. And that's an amazing part of our industry, you know, that there's no secrets to it. People want to share what they've got. And that's important, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We were
time.
lucky, really lucky.
No kidding. Now, in your experiences with some of those other people, did you ever have any moments where somebody taught you something and it kind of threw you for a loop, or you were like, I really have to change something that I've been doing the same way for a long time? Did you ever have those moments?
Yeah, I have them all the time.
It's scary, isn't it?
I have them all the time. Before I came home and set up, I qualified and I did day work for 6 months. Then I went to Canada and America for 3 months. And I did a week with 12 different farriers over there. And that was because I'd obviously been at Derrick's and I'd had the same way taught every day for 4 years.
Right.
And they all do stuff slightly different. And that was probably the biggest lot of curveballs in the one route, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Just different trimming techniques and different feet. And that was really a big eye-opener that you've got to respect that everybody trims in a different area, a different environment, and different types of horses.
Yeah.
Because you have to adapt to what you're doing and what you're working on. And they all did that. So I got a little bit from all of them. And yeah, no, it's really good.
Yeah, no kidding. That experience must have been incredible.
Amazing. Amazing people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just a wonderful 3 months. Really, really good. The only probably regret I've got is I maybe would have liked to go on for a little bit longer. Yeah, because I came home and set a business up. You can do that anytime. But at the time I wanted to get back. wanting
Of
to make
course.
money,
Yeah, of
you know,
course.
wanting to get back competing. But yeah, that was absolutely outstanding. That was brilliant.
I remember Chris Gregory telling the story of coming here. I think it was to do an exam, and he'd never dealt with a foot where the frog was protruding beyond the heels. And having Derek teach him.
Welcome to British Thoroughbreds.
Yeah, exactly. Teaching him how to rasp around the frog with it being in the way. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, just different areas, different types of feet, different industries. Yorkshire, where I live now, they've got 9 race courses just in Yorkshire. So I don't shoe race horses, but I have a lot of ex-racers come onto my books because
Off the track
they migrate in. You know, if you go to a different area, you would have a lot of cobs or a lot of heavy horses, or it just changes, you know.
Mm-hmm. So in working in the area that you do now, what do you usually specialize in? Is it a specific discipline or is it all over the map?
Honestly, it's great. Everything.
Yeah.
A bit of everything. Yorkshire's quite predominant for show horses as well.
Okay.
So like from little show ponies up to bigger show horses and hacks. So I do quite a lot of show horses. I do a lot of just riding cobs. They're really easy because they just want to wander out on a Sunday, have a hack about. Lovely laid back people. I do some heavy horses. I do some miniatures. Everything really. Yeah, really, really good. Do some pointers. Yeah, a bit of everything. Welsh cobs. Make handmade bevels for them. They're really good fun. They're a bit wild to shoe, but they're really good fun. I'd just say it's just a lovely mix. I've landed on my feet where I am because it's a lovely, lovely mix. Probably not the most affluent. Teesside's not a very affluent area in terms of what I get paid.
Yeah.
But there's lots of work and it's in a close area. So you
you're
save
not
on
paying-
travelling, you
right.
save on mileage. There's pros and cons, you know. Sometimes people from down south say, God, I can't believe you don't get more for shoeing. But I always say to folk, as long as you're happy for what you get, if you're happy what you get paid for your job, then that's all you need to go home and be happy about, not measuring against, you know, down south they may be on £120 a set, but they pay £7 for a pint of beer.
Yeah, right.
So it's all relative, isn't it? Yeah. You've just got to be happy with what you're getting for where you live.
Yeah, for sure. It's the same experience as back home. The cost of living, as you get further away from the major cities, goes down, but so do your shoeing prices or what you can get
Unless
for
you're in
them.
Florida, where they all get paid lots of money, don't they?
Well, no, actually, if you go into some of the more rural areas of Florida, you'll find some folks who charge very little for
Really?
shoeing. Yeah. And people expect that. Yeah. But no, the main horsey areas, yeah, definitely. It's sky's the limit.
Yeah, but that's just nature where you live. And if you're happy where you live, though, then you've got to be happy with what you're getting. You have to shoe to that area, I think, is what I mean.
Yeah.
In terms of style and in terms of price, and shoe to what's around you.
Yeah. And then I guess in the modern age, if you don't like that area, you move, right?
Yeah.
And find a spot you can.
Yeah, you can up sticks and move and shift. And that's the other great thing, isn't it? Your skill set goes all over the world, not just all over the country. So once you've got it, the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you like, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Now, I asked Jim this question, and I've often wondered, so coming from a country like this one, where you have such a foundational program that you go through first before you can even become a farrier, to going to North America, where it is a free-for-all, you would run across some stuff that probably you wouldn't find very good, and stuff that I asked Jim, and he was talking about seeing Craig Trenka's stuff, and that Craig had some ideas that he'd never thought of before, and they really helped him out. But what was that experience like? Did you find there were some people that you would end up with where, like, I might be ahead of you as far as what I know, and go from there?
I don't know. I try not to be too judgmental. I think everybody's got their own path. And what I would say about the other countries I've travelled to, anybody that shoes horses, because they haven't got a program, tends to be very good because they're so self-motivated.
Right.
We're a little bit spoiled here sometimes because we've got a system in place. We know we're going to be at a basic standard, and the need to go on and keep pushing yourself isn't quite the same drive as you guys have.
Okay.
There is that drive, but not everybody has it, because we tell them all the time, oh, you've got this gold standard of horseshoeing in the world. And sometimes that demotivates the need to push yourself because they think, well, we've got that anyway.
Right.
Whereas I find in America, Canada, European countries, the self-motivation is outstanding because they have to be like that because there's no program to push them to that. So the cream rises to the top, basically.
Right. Hence why there are so many Europeans and Canadians and Americans who are coming here to do their AWCF testing.
And are good at it. I examined the diploma group in November in Sweden, and the work was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, really amazing. Lovely to see.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And that's what it's about. We all like seeing well-shod horses, don't we?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Inspires you.
Yeah.
You kind of just answered that question as far as what caused you to carry on through your AWCF and your FWCF. I guess it's just that motivation to do better, right?
It's weird. I did a clinic in Canada the other year and they wanted us to do about the journey to the fellowship.
Right.
And I was saying that when I started out, it's really funny. I didn't know I wanted to be on the Scottish team. I didn't know that I wanted to travel or where my business was, but I always knew I wanted to do all 3 exams. I wanted to be a fellow. I always knew I wanted to do my DIP, my AW and my FW. That was always in the game plan because I wanted to be as good as I could be at what I was doing. And for me, that was those company exams. So it never really was a decision. It was just always going to be there. It was just when. And yeah, I'm about right now. I've been quite, I think when I did my AW, it was 2011. So I've been out my time 4 years, almost 5. I thought I'd shod enough horses to have enough experience to do that.
Right.
And then I had a bit of time out because it was quite exhausting. Because again, I was competing and running a business and getting ready for an exam.
Right.
So I had a little bit of time out. And yeah, I'm about ready to get back and do this FW now. And I also wanted to do it before I maybe had a family or before anything else. So I wanted to get all that kind of out the way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. Like I say, it wasn't really a conscious decision. It just was always what I wanted to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to ask you what your thesis was for the FWCF.
My thesis was basically what difference does it make when you insert a 3-degree plastic heel wedge to the morphology of the heels? So I was trying to look at, does it compress the heels? Does it shunt them forward? And a short version of the results was, in good feet, conformed feet that are strong, it doesn't make a lot of difference.
Okay.
In feet and limbs and individual digits that are already compromised,
Already crushed heels and...
it's going to perpetuate that. But mechanically, then you could have millions of studies come off that one study. What type of plastic you used, how
Right.
long it was in for, making sure all the conformations are the same. It's really hard for us in this country to get a pool of horses to do stuff like that on.
Of
I
course.
think in the States, you guys have a lot more leeway to get bigger pools of horses to do bigger studies.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, the more numbers you've got, the more data you can collect. But yeah, basically, if you have good digit conformation, those feet will take a lot of hammer, won't they?
Mm-hmm. Well,
You can miss bits and quarters, you can overshoe them, undershoe, and they recover well. If you've got feet that are already compromised, any addition is going to compromise them further in a different place. So it was interesting. It was good to do. It was a lot of hard work. I'm not very theoretical. I find that really hard to sit down. I'd rather be making shoes.
Right, yeah.
But it was good, and it gave me, I had never really great with computers. I'd never done public speaking, all those sort of skill sets. And that's what we're saying
It
before
just
about
put you out of your...
those tools are now in my box, and that's quite a nice thing. And I'll say that about exams. You learn like 150%. You only ever use 10% when you get examined, but you've gathered all that information getting ready. And that's why, even if you don't want to sit an exam, if you do the preparation for it, increasing your skill set all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's what's great about continued education, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. Before I started pursuing even the American Farriers certifications, I would read the textbook. I was hungry for knowledge and I would read the textbook, but I wouldn't absorb what I had to when I actually had to sit down and do an exam. So you almost peruse them as opposed to absorb them when you know you're going to be quizzed on this.
So much of the knowledge is common sense. So when I sat my AW, what I set myself a task was, when I felt like I'd put on enough remedial shoes on horses I shod to give me enough of a collective knowledge of different pathologies. So I got to a point where I was like, yeah, okay, I think I've probably covered enough now. I could do that. Because for me, if I've done it practically, I can probably write and talk about it better.
Right.
Whereas if I read it, I know I don't really understand it. If I can do it,
mm-hmm.
then that helps me back up that knowledge. But everybody's different learning styles, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I've heard a lot of people say that the examiners, if you can use an example from your practice, that it gets you so much further, right?
Yeah. And that's the real knowledge and understanding, isn't it? It's understanding. It's not just saying a bar shoe does this. It's knowing what the adverse effects are. And you don't know that unless you've seen it,
mm-hmm.
unless you've had to address those problems shoeing. And that really helps strengthen your understanding of what all these different shoes do.
Yeah. It's amazing how many people I've run into, especially top hands, who say that they would prefer to just work on everyday horses without issues. And I often think you must run across some issues because either I'm doing things terribly wrong, but there's always something that comes up that I'm going to have to figure out a new remedy for. So I enjoy that.
I think in this country, we probably aren't great with pricing. We probably don't get paid. And when you first qualified, I remember being so hungry to do anything to fix horses. And then I think you get a little bit older, and actually sometimes those horses are quite hassly. They're quite stressful.
Yep.
Going back to them, and you realise that you're probably not getting paid enough to cover that.
Right.
So that's where that comes from. I just want to shoe normal horses without lots of issues. But I think it's interesting. You never know what horses are going to come in your books with fresh problems, and you have a run where it's quiet. And then all of a sudden you maybe have 3 or 4 at once where you're doing different things. And yeah, just morphs and changes all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Which, once again, keeps it interesting.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. This is the Stratum Tectorium. Short answer questions brought to you by Out West Design and Fabrication. Your choice for farrier rigs. Out West has decided to extend their $500 off a new rig rebate until the end of March. Just mention that you heard about it here to receive your discount. Conditions apply. The link will be in the show notes. Do you have a favorite book?
Yes, I've just finished The Seven Sisters.
Okay.
Which is a really good series, yeah.
A series. Okay. And who's that by?
Oh, I can't remember the author's name. It's about a gentleman who's adopted 7 sisters from around the world.
Oh.
And he dies and he leaves a bit of a story, and each book takes you back to different parts in history where those babies came from. And I've actually learned loads about flamenco dancers, where they originated from. There's bits about the Nazis and the Germans in the war. Each book kind of, reading's really good because I just think it takes you away from normal life. You can curl up and go to another place. So yeah, 7 Sisters, great series. And in fact, I got Christine Trinket onto reading it.
Oh, did you?
A while ago, yeah. I was there and we're talking about books, so I got her started on them. But yeah, that's a really good series.
Okay. Favorite brand of nails?
Mustad. And my absolute favourite nails, an E9 Slim, which I think they've stopped making.
Oh, really? Well, you heard that, Mustad. You better fix that problem. What shoe sizes or lengths do you usually have to cut or keep the most stock of?
12 to 12.5 inch.
Okay. Is that usually concave?
Yeah.
Favorite make of rasp?
Probably Heller Green.
Everybody has said that they're having trouble right now. Consistency.
It's really difficult. I've got such a muddy, damp environment in the UK. And as we come into this time of year, I think all rasp clog. But the blues are really nice, but I have a big thing about I don't like rasp marks on feet. And I don't think for an everyday rasp you can get past the greens leaving a good finish.
Right.
If there's a clogging problem, it's hard to know if that's the rasp or is that the mud or is that the environment. But that's my go-to. That's what I use all the time.
Okay. Do you have a dream farrier rig?
Oh, gosh, yeah. N&J Linings, who've done the back on my pickup, they came here the other year and they had put a whole new back on a truck. Because when you're short like me, it's quite hard to reach in the side of your pickup. And they had one where they took the whole chassis off and it lifted right from sort of knee height on both sides. So when I win the lottery, that's what I'm going to get made. That's my dream rig, yeah.
Favorite rounding hammer?
Derek Gardner, I use a Stephen Bain. Yeah, both of those. Really good hammers, really well weighted, really nice to swing. Yeah, £2, both of them. Yeah, that's what I use. I use a Derek for fitting every day and I use a Stephen Bain for forging and competing. Yeah.
And Derek, when I interviewed him, he was saying it was watching you that caused him to change the weight that he had on the end of the hammer and weight it more on the flat side. Is that right?
It just gives you more power when it's coming down. There's a family, Chattertons, in the UK, and they were always really well known for having their hammers seriously weighted to the flat side.
Okay.
So a little bit similar. But I was really lucky because when I first started going to Calgary, I was between weights. I wanted a little bit heavier hammer for doing more thumping, but I'm not really strong enough to swing a 2.5 through an hour's class. So Derek made me a hammer that was like 2.2 with the shaft in, which was just a little bit heavier, so you had a little bit more bing to it. Mm-hmm. And yes, I saw a Shiny Boy, we nicknamed him, so I've still got that. But that's my favourite hammer.
Yeah, it must be handy having a hammer maker.
As a friend and an old boss.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a bit spoiled, yeah.
No kidding. Favorite type of bar stock to work with?
Oh, inch 3/8.
That's a fairly common answer. Favorite pastime after work?
Working my dog, going beating, working my dog, skiing and playing pool.
Skiing, like downhill skiing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's my 3 kind of go-tos.
Oh, okay. What's the next thing on your bucket list?
I've always wanted to go to Australia and New Zealand. And I've just been asked to go and judge a competition in New Zealand in March. So I'm going to tick about the bucket list in March and go and judge a competition out there and travel round as well. So that is really exciting, yeah.
How long are you going to stay there?
10 days. I can't really take much more than that with shoeing.
I know, it's tough.
Foaling season kicks off. Yeah, so yeah, that's really to look forward to.
Oh, good for you. Favorite brand of, now I say keg shoe, and apparently that's not common here. Favorite brand of machine-made shoe?
I like Mustads. I also like, we have a company called NWT. I like their concave, MNC concave. I'm a bit of everything, really. I have different brands I like for different styles of shoes.
Right.
So I don't have one go-to all the time. Kerkar, I use a lot on the show horses. I use a lot of Kerkar steel plates. They're really good. They've got loads of pitch. You can get a hold of the walls.
Okay.
And they're light enough for the show horses. So yeah, a little bit of everything actually.
Okay. Ideal number of horses to shoe all around in one day?
To be honest, if I've shoe 5 or 6, that's enough. I do a lot of trimming. So
Okay.
I'll probably trim as many horses as I shoe.
Right.
So my normal day, if I was on my own, would be maybe 5 sets and 5, 6 trims. If I've got a lad on, then we'll do a lot more shoeing and a little bit less trimming. So it changes all the time.
Right. I feel like most of your life is just go with the flow, right? Favorite anvil?
Emerson. I was trying to picture my anvil in my forge. Yeah, I've got an Emerson 200 weight in my forge, and I actually have 100 weight in my van.
Okay.
I won that in a competition at Billy's when I first qualified, and folk always say, oh my goodness, that's too heavy. But what's great about it is I can make shoes on it out on the job because everything's big enough. It's not huge.
Yeah.
It's a little bit too heavy to swing in and out, but after 15 years, you get used to it.
Yeah,
so.
right. Yeah. I have the same ones. Favorite inspirational quote?
Probably one of my favourites that I've repeated to loads of people was Derek. And I remember him saying about trimming feet. If it looks right, it is right. If it doesn't look right, then it's probably not, and you need to look at it again. And there's so many times I've gone back and done that and said to folk, if you don't think it looks quite right, that means it's probably not. So have 5 minutes, go back and have a look again.
Right.
Or his other favourite quote was when you were learning how to nail on, vision where you're going to send them and just send them there. And you're trying to get that confidence built up. And again, I've used that with folk and then heard them now use that on other people. So yeah, it's probably 2 of my favourites.
Yeah, I find whatever Derek says as advice, it really tends to stick with people.
It sticks, doesn't it?
Yeah, when I interviewed him, he said about making toast pointy. I mean, it's not exactly pointy, but that,
pointing them up.
Yeah, exactly.
Pulling them to the shape of the corner band.
Yep, exactly. And that I think of that almost daily when I'm shaping shoes. And I know quite a few others who it has stuck with as well.
I think frustratingly for him as well, though, I think when I'd gone off and done day work, I then went back and when I'd be working with him a little bit and I'd say, oh, so-and-so should be this. And I could see him thinking, I told you that ages ago. But when you're with the same person every day, you don't always absorb it, do you? I probably learned more actually going back since I've qualified and picking up bits from him. He probably has told me several times before. But
yeah, I find the same thing with my mentors. And then somebody else will walk by the anvil and say it. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Why didn't they tell me that? Do you have a farrier terrier, a dog that you take with you?
I have a spaniel.
Do you?
I have an extremely overgrown cocker spaniel, Bruce, and he comes everywhere with me every day. It's a great thing about our job, though, isn't it?
It
They
is.
come and they can just, and he's great company. He has lots of fans on yards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a great life for a dog. If you're stumped on a case or need backup, who do you call?
Oh, I've got a few, and it's always the same people. So Mark Caldwell, who's forgotten more than most of us will ever learn. He's amazing. Derek, I've been on to ring Alan Ferry, Jim Ferry, Paul Conroy, who's a brilliant educator here in the UK, totally underrated. He's amazing. I've rung him several times. He was one of the big guys that really helped me get ready for both my higher exams.
Okay.
And again, he's just a massive font of knowledge. But they're my kind of go-tos that they'll know.
Right. Do you have a favorite shoe or package for mystery lameness or when a client hasn't got a diagnosis from a vet yet?
Not really. Again, if it looks right, it's right. And if it doesn't, and being able to try stuff and being honest with owners that we'll try this and if it works, great. And if it doesn't, I don't really have a go-to. I have products I like using, but it's funny, you use them on one horse, you think, great, use it on the next horse, doesn't work so well.
Yeah.
I think it's really easy to get one shoe fits all, but it doesn't, does it?
No.
And that, again, that's what stops it being boring is thinking outside the box. And again, this CPD being mandatory, that's amazing because you go and learn about products you'd never have used.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, seeing new stuff.
Yeah. Favorite method of soothing aches and pains?
Hot bath. Hot bath and an ice pack. I hurt myself really badly just after I qualified. Put heat on it for weeks because that's what you do. Heat packs, hot seat on. And I went to this chiropractor. He said, what are you doing? And he said to me, and it made a lot of sense, if you had a rugby injury or a football injury, you'd ice it. Why would you put heat on it and make more inflammation? So since then, I'm a total go-to ice girl. I have ice packs in the freezer. If I'm a bit stiff, I'll put them on in the morning before I go shoeing. It's not very often. Usually, as we get into winter and it cools down quick, get a little bit stiff.
Yeah.
But to be honest, that's probably the difference between men and women as well. I notice it's not so much my lower back, it's my hip flexors because we're built differently.
Yeah.
So I have to be different things. But go to the gym a little bit, lots of stretching. As you get older, you realise that's not an option anymore. That is mandatory, or you're not going to shoe for very long.
No,
So
right.
yeah, ice is definitely a go-to. And just I say that, a hot bath and then a bit of an ice pack on. But yeah, just stretching, looking after yourself.
Yeah.
Not doing too much. Easier said than done.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that doesn't sound like your method of operation. What do you use as your planner or diary?
Paper diary, old fashioned. Don't like iPads. Don't like anything with technology. I like to write it down and rub it out if I have to and read it. Yeah, so just a bit old fashioned, really.
Yeah, it's pretty common, actually. Favorite drink?
Ooh, I like a good cup of tea
Mm-hmm.
and I like a gin and tonic.
Gotcha. Do you have a favorite song?
Oh, I've got loads.
Yeah.
Probably Mary Chapin Carpenter. Yeah. The Shirt, that's one of my favourites. I've got loads. I could reel loads off, yeah. Fleetwood Mac, Landslide. Mm. Yeah, loads.
Okay.
Yeah, loads.
What would you have been if not a farrier?
Honestly, I've got no idea. I quite like a little bit of design and house stuff, and we've done house up before, bit interior stuff and colours and fabrics and stuff. But I don't really know what I'd have done. I just love what I do. I'm really lucky.
Yeah. Oh, what do you use as your knives?
Oh, I've got a bit of a mixture. I've got some beanie knives. I've got some MNC knives. I've got some Ringo knives. And I can't remember the American guy that used to make them. They had the bear paw on them. McNerney.
Oh, okay.
I've got some McNerney knives.
I've
got a little bit of a knife
them?
fetish. We used to have the American team come and stay at the forge every year. And some of the guys used to give us knives that used to hand make them. So I've got some of theirs. Yeah, I have a bit of a knife fetish, definitely.
Yeah, I do too. And then the last question, the COVID question. If you were stuck in a shop with somebody for a month, who would you want it to be?
Probably Derek.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bit of banter.
It'd be a good
bit
month.
of shoemaking. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Sarah.
No problem. Thanks.